My fiancé snapped, "My friends don't like you, so keep your distance from them." I said, "Done." I stayed silent after that. But the moment she realized what her friends had already told me about her, she completely froze. I'm a 34-year-old guy who thought he had his life figured out. I was engaged to a woman I'd been with for 3 years, planning a wedding that was supposed to happen in 8 months. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue, hit it off immediately, and things moved pretty naturally from there. She was charming, funny, had this way of making everyone in a room feel comfortable. I proposed on a weekend trip to the mountains, and she cried happy tears. Everything seemed perfect, until about 6 weeks ago. We were at her apartment, just a regular Tuesday evening. I'd brought takeout from that place she loved downtown, and we were supposed to go over some wedding vendor options. The florist had sent 3 different packages, and the photographer needed a deposit decision by Friday. Instead, she was on her phone, texting furiously with this tight expression on her face. When I asked what was wrong, she waved me off. 20 minutes later, she suddenly looked up and said those words that would change everything. "My friends don't like you, so keep your distance from them." Just like that. No build-up, no explanation. I put down my fork and stared at her. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," she said, not even looking up from her phone. "They think you're boring and awkward at gatherings. They asked me to tell you to stop trying so hard." I felt like I'd been slapped. These were people I'd spent dozens of evenings with over the past 2 years. Birthday dinners, game nights, weekend brunches. I'd helped one of them move apartments, carried boxes up 3 flights of stairs in July heat. I'd driven another to the airport at 5 in the morning when her car broke down. I'd listened to their relationship problems over beers, celebrated their promotions with champagne, brought thoughtful gifts to their celebrations. I'd spent a whole Saturday helping one build furniture from that Swedish store everyone loves. "Which friends specifically?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Does it matter? Just give them space. Don't come to the gathering this weekend." Something in her tone felt off. Not apologetic, not even uncomfortable. Almost annoyed that she had to have this conversation at all. Like I was a burden she was finally addressing. She kept glancing at her phone like she wanted this over with. "Okay," I said. "Done." She blinked, clearly expecting more pushback. "Done?" "Yeah, I'll keep my distance, no problem." I finished my food in silence, helped clean up like I always did, and left earlier than usual. She seemed relieved, almost happy that I'd accepted it so easily. She kissed me at the door like nothing had happened, told me she'd call me tomorrow, said something about being busy with work stuff. Here's what she didn't know. 2 of her closest friends had already reached out to me, 3 weeks earlier. It started with her friend from college, the one she'd known for 12 years. They'd been roommates junior year, stood in each other's weddings. Well, her friend's wedding anyway. She messaged me on a random Thursday afternoon asking if we could grab coffee, just the 2 of us. Said she needed to talk to me about something important. I figured maybe she wanted help planning a surprise for my fiancé or something. Maybe advice on a gift. Her birthday was coming up in 2 months. We met at a cafe halfway between our places. She looked nervous, kept stirring her coffee without drinking it. Her hands were shaking slightly. She'd ordered a muffin but hadn't touched it. "I need to tell you something, and I'm probably breaking girl code by doing this, but I can't watch you walk into this marriage blind," she said. My stomach dropped. The way she said it, the look in her eyes, I knew it was bad. "She's been cheating on you for at least 5 months, maybe longer." I sat there, completely numb. The cafe noise faded into background static. She pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots. Messages between my fiancé and some guy she'd reconnected with from her hometown. Flirty at first, then explicit. Plans to meet up. Photos I definitely wasn't supposed to see. The timestamps went back to March. Late March, to be exact, right after we'd booked our wedding venue. "How did you get these?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "She left her iPad at my place after our girls' night last month. It was synced to her phone. The messages just kept popping up while I was trying to find her contact info to tell her she forgot it. I wasn't snooping, but once I saw what they were saying, she trailed off, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry. I thought you deserved to know. I debated for 2 weeks whether to tell you. I talked to my husband about it, and he said if he were in your position, he'd want to know." I asked her not to tell my fiancé we'd talked. I needed time to process, to figure out what to do. She agreed, but said she wasn't the only one who knew. Apparently, my fiancé had been confiding in another friend about this guy, calling it her escape plan in case the wedding stress got too real, talking about him like he was her safety net, her excitement, her secret adventure, like I was the obligation and he was the fun. That friend thought it was all fun and games until she realized my fiancé was actually serious about keeping this guy on the side, even after marriage. She'd joked about keeping him as her just-in-case option. That second friend reached out to me 2 days later. Same story, different details, more screenshots, more evidence. She apologized for not coming forward sooner, said she thought it was just cold feet and would blow over. She said my fiancé had been complaining about our relationship for months, saying she felt trapped and suffocated, which was news to me because she'd never expressed any of this to my face. To me, she was all smiles and wedding plans and talking about what kind of house we'd buy. I spent those 3 weeks feeling like I was living in a simulation. Every kiss felt like a lie. Every "I love you" made my skin crawl. But I kept my composure because I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. I needed to be smart about this, not emotional. So when my fiancé told me her friends didn't like me, I knew exactly what was happening. She was trying to isolate me from the people who knew the truth, create distance so they couldn't accidentally let something slip. She was building walls, controlling the narrative, making sure I stayed in the dark just long enough to lock me into marriage. She probably figured once we were married, it would be harder for me to leave, more complicated, more expensive. I played it cool. For 2 weeks after that conversation, I acted completely normal. Went to work at my regular hours, came home, texted her sweet messages throughout the day, talked about wedding plans like nothing was wrong. We discussed honeymoon destinations. She wanted beaches, I suggested mountains. We compromised on somewhere with both. She showed me bridesmaid dress options in various shades of blue. I pretended to care about flower arrangements, nodded along when she talked about roses versus peonies. Meanwhile, I was documenting everything. I hired a private investigator, a woman who came highly recommended by a divorce attorney friend. Not because I needed more proof, but because I wanted a complete picture. Dates, locations, frequency, everything. I needed to know if this was ongoing or if it had ended. I needed facts, not just screenshots that could be explained away. The investigator came back with a folder that made me physically sick. Hotels across town, always mid-range places where no one we knew would randomly show up. His apartment, which was apparently 20 minutes from her office, convenient for lunch breaks. Even my place, twice, when I was out of town for work conferences. My own damn apartment. In my bed. The investigator had timestamps from my building's security footage showing her bringing him in. That detail haunted me for days. I couldn't sleep in that bed anymore. The investigator included photos. Nothing explicit, but enough. Her car parked outside his building overnight. The two of them having dinner at restaurants in neighborhoods where we'd never been together. Him kissing her goodbye in a parking garage. The timestamps showed this was still happening, as recently as 5 days ago. The day before, she told me her friends didn't like me. I also quietly contacted our wedding vendors, explained the situation to the ones I'd personally paid deposits to, the venue, the photographer, the DJ. The venue coordinator was incredibly understanding, said she'd seen this before more times than she could count. Most were willing to refund or transfer credits. I moved my stuff out of her apartment slowly, just a few things at a time so she wouldn't notice. A box of books here, some winter clothes there, my good cookware, my grandmother's quilt that had been on her couch, redirected my mail to my parents' address, changed my passwords on every shared account, streaming services, grocery delivery, everything. I opened a new bank account she didn't know about and started moving my money over gradually. Canceled my name from the lease renewal she'd been planning for us to sign next month. Then I waited for the right moment. It came 3.5 weeks after her "keep your distance" speech. She was hosting a small dinner party at her place on a Saturday evening, mostly her inner circle. About 8 people total. The same friends who supposedly didn't like me. She mentioned it casually one morning over breakfast at my place, said I obviously wasn't invited given the situation. She was eating toast, scrolling through her phone like it was nothing. "Actually," I said, "I think I should come." She looked panicked. Her coffee cup froze halfway to her mouth. Toast crumbs on her lip. "I told you they don't want you there." "Funny thing about that," I said, watching her face carefully. "2 of them specifically asked me to come, said they missed me, said it's been weird that you've been keeping us apart." Her face went white, completely drained of color. "They asked about me?" "Yeah, multiple times. They think it's strange that I haven't been around, almost like you've been lying to them too." She stammered something about mixed signals and misunderstandings, started backtracking, saying maybe she'd misunderstood what they meant. I just smiled and sipped my coffee. I showed up that Saturday evening with a folder and a bottle of wine, expensive stuff, the kind she always said was wasted on her friends. When I walked in, her 2 friends who'd told me the truth immediately relaxed. They'd been dreading this evening, expecting awkwardness, probably wondering if I'd gotten their messages. The others looked confused, glancing between me and my fiancé, sensing tension but not understanding it. My fiancé looked like she might throw up. She was pale, gripping her wine glass so hard I thought it might shatter. "Thanks for having me," I said pleasantly, setting the wine down on her kitchen counter. "I know there's been some tension, so I thought we should clear the air." Everyone was watching now. The room had gone quiet. Someone had been telling a story about work, but they'd stopped mid-sentence. I opened the folder, laid out printed screenshots on the coffee table one by one, messages, photos, the investigator's timeline, complete with dates and locations, hotel receipts I'd pulled from her email account that she'd forgotten to delete, probably thinking I'd never check, credit card statements I'd gotten copies of from our joint account before I removed myself from it. "Someone want to explain why I'm supposedly the problem here?" I asked, my voice calm. The room went silent. You could hear people breathing. Someone's phone buzzed on the table, but nobody moved. One friend covered her mouth with both hands. Another started crying, apologizing over and over, saying she should have said something sooner. A guy friend who'd always been decent to me just shook his head in disbelief, staring at the papers like they might rearrange themselves into something different. My fiancée just stood there, frozen, staring at the evidence of her own betrayal spread out in front of everyone she cared about. "You went through my phone?" she finally whispered, her voice cracking. "I didn't have to. Your friends cared about me more than you did. They told me everything because they have actual integrity." She turned on them, furious. Her face flushed red. "You had no right." "They had every right," I cut her off. "You were planning to marry me while screwing someone else, in my apartment, using money from our joint account to pay for hotels. You want to see the charges? I've got them all highlighted. That last part I'd discovered 3 days ago while going through statements. Small charges I'd never noticed, always under $50, always labeled vaguely. Parking fees near his neighborhood, dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together, coffee shops I'd never heard of, wine bars in parts of town where she claimed to be working late. It added up to hundreds of dollars over 5 months. My money, our money, funding her affair. "You told me your friends didn't like me, so I'd stay away from the only people who might tell me the truth," I continued, standing now. "You isolated me on purpose. You manipulated everyone in this room. You made them think I was the problem, so they wouldn't question why you were keeping me away." "It's not what it looks like," she tried, her voice desperate now. Tears starting. It's exactly what it looks like. And honestly, I don't even care about him. I care that you looked me in the eye every single day and lied, that you let me pay for wedding deposits while you were planning your exit strategy, that you made me feel crazy for wondering why you were always on your phone, that you gaslit me for months, told me I was being paranoid when I asked why you were suddenly so busy, that you let me meet with the wedding planner last week and smile through cake tastings while you were probably texting him the whole time. I pulled the ring off my finger, the one my grandfather had given my grandmother, the one I'd had resized for her, and set it on top of the pile of evidence. The sound of it hitting the table echoed in the silent room. We're done. I'll send you the cancellation fees for the vendors I'm backing out of. You can explain to your family why the wedding's off. You can tell them whatever story you want, but everyone here knows the truth now. I'm sure it'll spread. One of her friends spoke up then. We're so sorry. We should have told you sooner. You told me when it mattered, I said. Thank you for that. I walked out. Didn't look back. Behind me, I heard her start to cry, heard her friends starting to talk all at once, heard someone say, "How could you do this to him?" Another voice, male, said something about being disgusted. I closed the door on all of it. The fallout was nuclear. Within 48 hours, her entire friend group knew everything. Half of them stopped talking to her completely, blocked her on everything. The guy she was cheating with apparently freaked out when mutual friends tracked him down and told him she was actually engaged, claimed he thought we'd broken up months ago, that she'd told him I was just some ex who wouldn't leave her alone. He blocked her on everything immediately. She tried calling me 63 times in the first week alone. I counted. Left voicemails ranging from apologies to anger to bargaining to threats. I blocked her after the 15th voicemail, saved them all as documentation. Her mother reached out to apologize via email, a long message about how she'd raised her daughter better than this. Said she'd had suspicions but hoped she was wrong, noticed her daughter had seemed different lately, more secretive. Her sister called me multiple times, crying, asking why I didn't tell them sooner. I told them the truth. I needed to be sure, and I needed to protect myself first. I couldn't risk her spinning the story before I had all the facts. They understood, said they didn't blame me. The worst part? She tried to spin it like I was controlling for spying on her. Posted some vague thing on social media about privacy and trust and toxic relationships and how sometimes the person who seems perfect is actually manipulative. Her friends who knew the truth shut that down immediately. One of them commented the full story in response, dates and everything, screenshots of her own messages with my ex, where she'd bragged about her affair. The post was gone within an hour, but screenshots live forever. Someone had already shared it to their story, and from there it spread. Her professional network saw it. Her family saw it. Everyone saw it. I moved into a new place last month. Smaller, quieter, just mine. One bedroom, a decent kitchen, a balcony overlooking the city where I drink my morning coffee. No shared spaces, no joint accounts, no wondering if I'm being lied to when she comes home late. I kept the dog we'd adopted together, a rescue mutt we'd gotten from the shelter on our 1-year anniversary. She tried to use him as a bargaining chip to get me to talk to her, said she'd only give him back if I agreed to meet in person. I paid her for half his adoption fee through a lawyer, had the papers transferred to my name only, and told her through my attorney to lose my number. The wedding would have been in 3 months, early March, spring wedding, all her ideas. Instead, I spent that money on a trip for myself. 2 weeks in a place I'd always wanted to visit, somewhere with mountains and quiet and no cell service for days at a time. No drama, no lies, just me figuring out who I am without someone constantly rewriting reality. I hiked. I read books I'd been meaning to get to. I slept without nightmares for the first time in months. Met some interesting people, had conversations that didn't involve lies or manipulation. Remembered what it felt like to not be constantly anxious. Her 2 friends who told me the truth. We still grab coffee sometimes every few weeks. They apologized probably 100 times in different ways, but I told them they did the right thing. One of them said she'd never seen someone handle betrayal so calmly, so methodically. I told her it wasn't calm, it was calculated. There's a difference. Calm is peaceful. Calculated is survival. You do what you need to do to protect yourself. My ex sent me one final email 2 weeks ago. Long, rambling, full of excuses. Said she loved me but felt trapped. Said the other guy was a mistake, meant nothing, was just an escape from wedding stress. Said she wanted to go to therapy and fix things, that she'd do anything. Said she'd been struggling with commitment issues and didn't know how to talk to me about it. That she self-sabotaged because she was scared of marriage. Pages of explanations that all boiled down to she wanted to have her cake and eat it too. I didn't respond. I just forwarded it to my lawyer for documentation, just in case she tried to claim I owed her money or came after shared assets or decided to get vindictive. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even hurt, really. I'm just tired. Tired of people treating relationships like rough drafts, like you can just erase and rewrite whenever you feel like it. Tired of being made to feel like the problem when I'm just asking for basic honesty. Tired of wondering if I missed red flags or if she was just that good at lying. My therapist says I probably missed some things, that nobody's that perfect at deception, but I don't know. She seemed so genuine. I don't know what she tells people now. I don't care. Everyone who matters knows the truth, and the people who believed her lies without asking questions, who took her side without knowing the full story, weren't people I needed in my life anyway. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if her friends hadn't told me. Would I have married her? Would I have found out on my own, months or years later, when we had a mortgage together and maybe kids? Would she have kept him as her backup plan indefinitely? Would there have been others? How long would she have let me live in ignorance? I'll never know, and I'm grateful for that. What I do know is this. When someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. And when their own friends risk their relationships to warn you, listen. Those 2 women saved me from a disaster I didn't even know was coming. They saw something wrong and spoke up, consequences be damned. That takes real courage. That's the kind of person I want in my life. Not someone who lies to my face while planning their exit strategy. I'm good now. Actually good, not just pretending. The apartment is mine. The dog is mine. My life is mine. My decisions are mine. And I'm not sharing it with anyone unless they really prove, they deserve it. The bar is higher now. Trust isn't freely given anymore. That's the lesson. Not everyone deserves access to you, and some people will burn down everything you built together just to keep warm for a night. Some people are so focused on what they want in the moment that they'll destroy years of trust without a second thought. I'm done being someone's backup plan. I'm done being the safe choice while someone else gets to be the exciting one. My life is my own again, and that's worth more than any wedding could have been.